Hey everybody, Chris, the old ass retro gamer here. This is actually my 50th episode. I've done this 50 times. But I still wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't having fun, so that's saying something. So what do I intend to do for my 50th episode? Well, I figured I'd do a much overdue video where I talk about my top 10 video games of all time. Yeah, it's another list video, but stick with what works. I've actually had requests for this for quite a while. I never really talk about what my all-time favorite games are, so I figured it's high time that I do that. This is my list of top 10 games. Don't get all up in arms if you don't see something that you like or you see something that you don't like in my list, because this is my list of top 10 games, not yours. I would love to see yours, by the way. Don't get me wrong. But I have not had your experiences and you have not had mine, so this is based on that, nothing more. So let's get started. These are my top 10 favorite video games of all time. While I did play the original Nintendo game as well as the Game Boy sequel, I never really got into them as heavily as some other people did until this came out. I picked this up at a local store basically because the guy who owned the place was talking this up something fierce. Yeah, I had seen it in Nintendo Power and in magazines and whatnot, but just the way he talked about it really sold me on it, even though I wasn't really planning on picking it up to begin with, because like I said, I wasn't really into the first two games. And I'm so glad that I listened to him, because I played this game so freaking much when I first bought it. Oh my god. This one just completely did it for me. It sucked me in. I wanted to explore every nook and cranny of the world. I wanted to find every secret. And then I started doing speed runs once I completed it for the first time. It is so much fun. The music is so freaking cool and creepy and moody. And the graphics are just, for 16-bit, they're stunning. There's so many cool effects. I remember, like, the fog effects have always been impressive to me. The bosses are huge. The boss battles are really clever. Sometimes they're a little too easy. And it's just the way the game progresses. You get a new ability, it unlocks a whole new set of areas for you. And you keep repeating that. You keep unlocking new areas by finding new abilities. And it's just, it is so fun. I can't get enough of this game. It is so rad. I don't have part 1 or 2. I plan on rectifying that soon. It's basically the entire Rock Band franchise that is in my 9th spot. Why? Over the years, especially when I was younger, when I had the Nintendo 64 and the Dreamcast originally, I would have parties where we sit around and we play these big multiplayer games that didn't require a computer for every single person. They never really worked out. One time when I was making a short film, I got the cast together and we played Conker's Bad Fur Day for a while. I think I actually have a picture of that. That is until Rock Band came out. I bought the big set with the original game that came with the drum kit and the guitar. Within about a week of getting it, I had a party where people that usually didn't even talk to me at work decided to come over to my house to play. There was about 10 people over at my small little apartment that was, in the suburbs back then, fighting over who was gonna play the guitar for the next song. Lots of beer, lots of food, lots of laughing. It was just such a great time. And plus, it didn't hurt that the music in the original game, the songs, were so freaking fantastic and just perfect for what the game was. And then part 2 came out and completely improved on it. I had parties almost like every other month for Rock Band, where just people would come over and we would just play our hearts out. We'd play into the wee hours of the night. And then the third one comes out. It introduces the keyboard peripheral, which took it to a whole other level. The first year of living in this apartment that I'm currently in, my birthday that I had that year, I had a party, and I'm surprised I was not evicted, because we played Rock Band 3 until probably 3 in the morning, blasting this thing with all my windows open, and it was epic. It was amazing. People were going absolutely batshit crazy. I'm surprised my downstairs neighbors did not call the cops on me, especially with all the banging from the foot pedal for the drums. But still, to this day, I'll pop this in, play a few songs, and I still have just as much fun, and I am super excited about Rock Band 4 coming out for the next-gen systems. I can't wait. I might have mentioned it in my original collection video where I was talking about my PlayStation 3 games, that it really takes a lot for me to get emotionally attached to characters in a video game. Everything has to be in perfect order. I mean, things just have to happen a specific way for me to completely latch onto the characters the way I did with the ones from Uncharted 2. I love the first game. The third game's not so great, but this one just... There's a twist near the end where a character dies. I almost cried. I welled up. I almost had tears streaming down my cheeks. I was so upset that that happened, and I could not believe that this game was going to make that happen. Turned out to not be true, but still, I was like, for a good half an hour, I was like, you son of a bitch, how dare you do that? I was so mad. I was like, I have to beat this game, and I have to beat it right now to find out if that's true or not. That says a lot for this game. Perfect platforming adventure game. It is so much fun. The characters are so well written. The dialogue is spot on. The play control is phenomenal. The puzzles are great. Some of them are easier than others, but that's just the way it works for most of these types of games. But just everything about it, the visuals, the modes of gameplay, everything about it. The only thing I did not play in here was the multiplayer online, which I usually can't stand. But this is as close to a perfect adventure game as you could possibly get. And even though everyone says Nathan Drake is a ripoff of Indiana Jones, I think Nathan Drake is more cool.
What?
But it's just so much fun. It is such a phenomenal experience. If you have not played Uncharted 2, you are completely missing out on one of the greatest video games ever made, as far as I'm concerned. I know that some of you might think that Super Mario Bros. 2 is not a real Super Mario Bros. Game. You're an idiot. Sure, this started off as a Famicom game called Doki Doki Panic, and that was hacked by Nintendo to turn it into a Mario Bros. Game because the original Mario Bros. 2 was considered way too hard for American audiences. But there's just something about this game that just did it for me. Don't get me wrong, I loved the original Super Mario Brothers. I did. It's a groundbreaking game. I mean, it revitalized the video game industry. But this one just completely changed up what it was to be a Mario Brothers game. Completely different mechanics, sub-level warp zone things that you could go into like a negative version of the world and find extra coins and stuff. It was just completely different. And I think that was what was awesome about sequels for the Nintendo era. Nowadays, sequels for the current gen games just kind of repeat what happened before, just with a new story. In the Nintendo days, the games were completely different. Look at Legend of Zelda compared to Legend of Zelda 2. Look at Castlevania compared to Castlevania 2. And this one is the best of the bunch as far as I'm concerned. It is so much fun. Everything is so well designed. The graphics are great. The music is super catchy. It is so creative, colorful, and whimsical, and it's just like a complete joy to play. Yeah, this started off as a non-Mario game. Doesn't matter to me. I don't live in Japan. I didn't have the experience of playing the original Super Mario Bros. 2. This is what I had the experience playing when I was a child. And I love it. I love it so much that I completely went crazy and made a bunch of perler art based on the characters and stuff. I was the Phantos and the Shy Guys and Birdo. And a freaking giant wart. That is the definitive Mario Bros. Game for me. Like I said, it takes a lot for me to get emotionally invested in a character in a game. This is the first one that really pulled me in. Chris Roberts, who has created every Wing Commander game in the series, really made these games cinematic through all the cutscenes and whatnot, decided to go one step further with this game, which is a port of a PC game for the 3DO, by hiring actors and making it like an actual interactive film. It happens to have 3D space battles going on in it. Mark Hamill, John Rhys-Davies, Malcolm McDowell, Ginger Lynn Allen, who is adorable as hell, even though she was an ex-softcore porn star. And freaking Biff plays Maniac. How awesome is that? The story is awesome and plays out in such a great way that it is so hard not to get sucked into it. Sure, some of the CGI and the cutscenes are kind of iffy, but it's all about the gameplay when you're not watching one of these scenes. And the gameplay is fantastic. It's a 3D space shooter just like every other Wing Commander game. It is fantastic. The missions, while not as varied as they could be, but that doesn't matter because I was so into the story, I didn't mind that the missions got repetitive. I just wanted to play through this thing regardless to see how it ends. And on top of that, to add replay value, you're given the choice at the end of the game between the two different love interests. The outcome is basically the same. There are slight differences that make it worth playing through twice, but because I love it so much, I play through it more than twice, so that's saying something. This was even the killer rap to one of my friends that made him say he needed to buy a 3DO. I showed him this game, and he was like, let's go, Best Buy, now, I need it. Probably the best game to be available on the 3DO. And it kicks the shit out of the PlayStation 1 version because this version doesn't crash. Castlevania is a classic series, we all know that, but why did this one appeal to me so much? I was not prepared for this. I figured it was just going to be the exact same game as the originals, just with a new coat of paint, maybe some better music. While it is like that, it is kind of like a remake of the first game. They introduced a lot of new play mechanics, including the fact that you can take your whip and move it around instead of just being a straight shot. You can use it upwards, you can use it in diagonal, you can, you know, shake it around to whack things that are shooting at you. You can even latch onto hooks so you can swing from platform to platform. The music is just so gothically awesome. I actually recorded it onto a cassette tape to listen to on my Walkman on the way to school.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
The play control, if it sucked, is where this game would have faltered. It is spot on for the entire game. Graphics are fantastic. Lots of great Mode 7 effects. That room that's like a barrel that's spinning behind you. Every time I play that level, I get kind of like dizzy, even though I don't get vertigo or anything like that normally. It's disorienting, and it's just awesome that it is able to do that to me. All the different environments are really cool and well animated and just well thought out. I know some people think it took too much of a departure from the original 3 Castlevania games. I don't care. I like the fact that this one was a little bit different and decided to do some new things. This is the game that I would tell everybody that I knew that if you didn't have a Super Nintendo, you needed one so you could play this game. Every single moment of it is fun. And it is hard as hell, but, you know, those are the days. I'm embarrassed to show this one off. Why? Because, like I mentioned in the original collection video, I did something incredibly stupid, and that is I got rid of the original case for Panzer Dragoon's Saga. Now I just have the discs in the instruction book. I'm sad! I only knew! Chris of the past, you are a maroon! But Panzer Dragoon Saga is quite possibly the finest RPG I have ever played. Why? Because I did not think it was going to be an RPG, because it is a sequel to a series of games which are 3D shooters, and it is adapted to fit into the RPG style in such a great way that I completely fell in love with this game. It was one of the final games released for the Sega Saturn. Since I enjoyed the Panzer Dragoon games so much, I ran out the day that this was released to pick it up, got the last copy at the electronics boutique that I would normally go to. The guy was actually going to hold it for himself, but I pretty much pleaded with him to let me have it instead, and he said fine. And this is still that original copy that I had back then. But it's just such a well-made RPG that just kind of plays by its own rules. It's all about the way the game plays, and it is this pseudo 3D shooter that takes place in 3D space where you can spin around the dragon that you're flying on in 360 degrees to take out the enemies. And it all happens on the point system as if you're in an RPG battle in a Final Fantasy game. You gain experience, you level up, you buy new items, you buy armor, just like in a standard RPG. But it's just the fact that this is done in such a different way that I really got into it heavily. And I remember calling out of work multiple times just because I wanted to get further in this game. And, oh, I'm sorry, work, but you're getting in the way of my gaming time. Everything about the game is pitch perfect. The music, the graphics, well, kind of blocky, but that's just kind of the way the Saturn did 3D, is great, fits the story, it fits the world. It's a specific art style, which I really fell in love with these games, even in the Xbox game that came out a few years later. But it's all about the gameplay that sets it apart, and that's why I love it so much, and I consider this my favorite RPG of all time. Star Control 2 for the 3DO is this game that I knew absolutely nothing about beforehand. I was always looking for new games to play on my 3DO. I did buy a lot of crap, trying to justify the purchase of my 3DO, which I was still kind of mad about because I had to spend $700 and sell my entire Sega collection to get it. And then this comes along. This made having a 3DO completely worthwhile. It is a space-bound adventure game where you have an entire galaxy worth of planets to explore. There is a main storyline that you have to play through, that you have to kind of find clues in order to find out which planet you need to go to next to make the story continue. and you have a certain time limit you need to get it done within, otherwise the end of the Earth will happen. But doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You can go and check out any old planet you want. You can mine for ore, check out all the different planets, go and fly around the entire galaxy, just see what there is. You'll probably end up losing the game, but you have the option, which is awesome. But the main story, which is about a rebellion against the Urkwon, you have to go and Seven Samurai style try to go and find alien races to come and help you take on the Urkwon so you can free your planet. So much fun. There is just so much to do in this game, so much to see. Everything is colorful, with all the different aliens. Some are really funny, some are actually kind of terrifying. All are rad.
Two aspects of your last statement defy the course of nature, and I know it.
And just through selections of dialogue, you can befriend these aliens, you can make enemies of them. It's all choice, which is awesome. And that is the first game that made choice a big part of the game, and I completely fell in love with it. And I played this game nonstop. I beat it multiple times. It is such a fun game. It is really deep, really involving. The game even comes with a really cool map of the entire galaxy if you need it. A walkthrough is recommended if you can, because it took me multiple times playing through this game to get everything right within the time that's allotted to you to be able to beat the game. But once I did, man, phew, I absolutely adore this game. Choice is the big thing in this game, and it is so awesome. I can't get enough of Star Control 2. I still can't. I will still crack out my 3DO and play it any day of the week. Mortal Kombat 2 is my number 2 game of all time, the arcade version. I don't own an arcade cabinet of it, so the Super Nintendo version is going to be the stand-in. When the game came out, I had just graduated high school and was attending college. I am not a history person. I would ditch my history class probably twice a week in order to go to an arcade with one of my friends just to play Mortal Kombat 2. All the fatalities, all the babalities, trying to figure out all the secrets, how Johnny Cage can do that uppercut fatality that knocks off 3 heads instead of just 1, how to get to Jade, how to turn into Kentaro when you're playing as Shang Tsung, all the environmental deaths. You have no idea how much time I sank into this game in the arcade. I mean, I spent so much money on it, I probably could have bought my own cabinet back then. I still consider it one of the best fighting games I've ever played. I mean, Mortal Kombat 1 I thought was really good. Mortal Kombat 2 just did it so much better and so much bigger, and I just ate it all up. I was sacrificing my education so I could play Mortal Kombat 2. I know that's kind of sad, but, you know, that's what geeks do sometimes. Like me. Mortal Kombat 2 kind of was my life back then. I loved everything about it. I was collecting everything I could find that had to do with it. I was buying the comic books, a customizable card game that I still have based on Mortal Kombat, just because I loved playing this game so much. And of course, once it came to the home consoles, it took on a whole other dimension where now I could beat the shit out of my friends in the comfort of my own home instead of having to plop quarters down for this thing. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the finest examples of what a perfect fighting game should be. That is not only deep, but fun and entertaining and just keeps you wanting to come back for more because, you know, you could always do better. You can master each of these different characters. And that's exactly what I did. I tried to master every single character in this game, even though I was not a fan of the Johnny Cage after a certain experience that you might know about. And they are still cranking these games out, and they are still of high quality. Well, they kind of dipped in the middle there.
Finish him. Scorpion wins. Friendship. Friendship?
Before I get to my top video game of all time, how about some runners-up? It's time for my number 1 video game of all time. And while I never see this game on anybody's top 10 list, this is my top 10 list, so you can eat it. Back when I first got my Super Nintendo, which was the first video game system I ever purchased with my own money, I wasn't really that impressed with it when I first got it. I mean, yeah, I liked Super Mario World. I think I also had Ultraman and SimCity and Pilot Wings and Super R-Type. And while I did like those games, I was still kind of like, this system hasn't really done anything that I couldn't have played on the standard Nintendo. And then this came out. This is the game that made me realize exactly what a 16-bit game should be like. Not only are the graphics just super colorful and detailed and lush and just creatively designed, but man, the music in this game by Yuzo Koshiro is quite possibly some of the coolest music you will ever hear in a video game. It is this awesome synth orchestra. The compositions are just amazing. And come on, the music in this game is so awesome. I use it in my new intro. The Filmoa music for the first level is just so freaking awesome. But as great as that music is, it would be nothing without the game. You play as a god who has been away from the world for a while, and in the meantime, evil has just come and completely wrecked shit, and you need to get everything back in order. You need to inspire the population of your world to rebuild their towns, not to put up with any crap from any villains, and you have to rid the world of the ultimate evil that is corrupting everything. The game is an awesome mix of two different playstyles, which is why I love this game as much as I do. At times, it is a standard side-scrolling action game that is kind of like Castlevania without a whip, you have a sword. But then there's also the world-building aspect of the game, where in between the side-scrolling action levels, you play as this little angel who is guiding these residents of these areas to build a town and learn how to protect themselves from enemies. There are multiple enemy layers in each area that you need to direct the townsfolk to so they can seal them up so they can get on with living their lives. You have to introduce them to certain types of crops that they need to grow, and you need to save certain people when they get lost, and there's just, each town has its own challenges, and it is so much fun. I mean, that is the most addictive aspect of this game for me. It's kind of like SimCity, but you're playing as God, and the two types of gameplay are why I find this game so addictive, and they are paced so well that just as a side-scrolling level is ending, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm done with this for a while, and then the world-building scene begins, and that is the perfect break you need from a really hard side-scroller level. And then once that starts to wind down, it was always ending at the perfect time where I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of sick of this. I'd rather play another side-scrolling level. And that's when you can do a side-scrolling level. It is paced so well. Every level is like that. I commend the makers of this game in every way. And just predicting that for the players. It's genius. And the final battle is like this epic war of attrition where it's like a boss rush where you have to fight all the bosses all over again before you take on the main boss, who has two forms and is just insane. Insane, absolutely insane. It's all worth it in the end because you have this epic music to go out on, this really serene final scene, and you find out exactly what was going on in all the different areas while you're fighting the villain. This game is amazing. Everything about it is perfect in my eyes. There is nothing negative I can say in any way, shape, or form about ActRaiser. If you have not played ActRaiser yet, I highly recommend you pick up a copy of it and experience it for yourself. It is quite possibly the most enjoyable and creative game I've ever played in my life. Just avoid the second game because it sucks ass. And that is my top 10 video games of all time. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you saw some games in there that you have played and enjoyed. I hope if you haven't played any of these games, that it will inspire you to go out and do just that. If you have played these games, what do you think about them? If you haven't played some of these games and you do go out and play some of these games, what do you think about them after you've played them? Let's bring it full circle. What is your top 10 list? Because I would love to see what yours is. Let's get some video responses going. And plus, I'm still considering doing a Q&A episode, so if you have any specific questions you want me to answer in that video, let me know in the comments below. And while you're at it, if you haven't already done it, please subscribe to my channel. Do it! You're already here, you're obviously enjoying yourself, and if you are enjoying yourself, let's get a thumbs up going too. Please share the video on the social networks, you know, on the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram and all that stuff. And until then, I'm Chris, the old-ass retro gamer, signing off. I was able to play The Hand That Feeds by Nine Inch Nails without even looking at the screen. I would turn my back and play it looking at the wall. I memorized it. No life. That's what happened.